Welcome to Chapter 2 of Project Dracunalysis, analysis of Chapter 2 of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And again, I've just gone through and picked out some key quotations and little things I want to discuss in said chapter. So without further ado, have a look. So this continues Jonathan Harker's stay at Castle Dracula, and we're going to find out more mysterious things are happening, and we're obviously introduced to Count Dracula himself. So we start off with 5th of May entry, and again picking out things here. This is I thought this was an interesting for description of Castle Dracula itself, and going for that gothic medieval look as well. And it's night time, several dark ways led from it under great round arches. It perhaps seemed bigger than it really is. I have not yet been able to see it by daylight. So it's a good one for themes of appearance versus reality and crossing those kind of boundaries. And of course, Jonathan Harker has crossed the boundary into Castle Dracula itself. And we talked about the driver last time as well. And he noticed his prodigious strength and the implication, even though Jonathan Harker hasn't made the connection yet, but later on he realizes as well as the reader that Stoker intends this to be, it's Dracula doing his micromanagement thing again. We have a nice simile here, like a steel vice that could have crushed mine if he had chosen, and that actually foreshadows the power which Dracula has over Jonathan Harker in Castle Dracula. And there's also connotations of pain there as well. As a close to a great door, old and studded with large iron nails. So that's definitely got a medieval feel, whether that's deliberately evoking the famous or infamous Iron Maiden torture device, which actually was a Victorian invention and wasn't really used in medieval times anyway. But it certainly has that feel. It doesn't really have iron. When it says iron nails, they're not sticking out, but I think the connotations of that make you think of, definitely at the very least, medieval, and maybe by very subconscious association you're thinking of something like the Iron Maiden itself, but it's not like it's got spikes on the door. The nails are nailed into the wood. But then said a projecting doorway of massive stone. So again, it's medieval, it's old. The carving had been much worn by time and weather. I didn't highlight that, sorry. So a sense of age and time. Series of rhetorical questions here. Stoker gives Harker. What sort of place had I come to, and among what kind of people? What sort of grim adventure was it on which I had embarked? Was this a customary incident in the life of a solicitor's clerk sent out to explain the purchase of a London estate to a foreigner? So a series of rhetorical questions there. Stoker's using that to demonstrate, or illustrate I should say, Jonathan Harker's confusion and sense of alienation and isolation as well, and confusion. And I've just highlighted that one. I'm now a full-blown solicitor as well, so there's a little bit of a social status thing going on there, and the idea of his own kind of social class and his own improving there because he's been promoted, and obviously that's good for Mina as well, his relationship with her. I've highlighted this because the sound of rattling chains and the clanking of massive bolts drawn back. There's definitely like a ghostly connotations there, isn't it? If anyone's familiar with A Christmas Carol, you'll know what I mean with that one. And again, it's ominous. The key was turned with a loud grating noise of long disuse, and the great door swung back. So we've got clanking onomatopoeia there as well. The description of Dracula is interesting and not necessarily exactly how he appears in lots of film versions. So the tall old man, clean shaven save for a long white moustache and clad in black from head to foot, without a single speck of colour about him anywhere. He held in his hand an antique silver lamp. Interesting pre-modifier there for antique, suggesting again age. which the flame burned without chimney or globe of any kind, throwing long quivering shadows as it flickered in the draught of the open door. So actually even the lamp is a little bit mysterious as well. Welcome to my house, enter freely and of your own will. In the folklore, vampires have a strange thing about courtesy and invitations and manners and politeness, and Dracula is definitely polite and at least appearing friendly as well. So again, there's appearance versus reality. There's a little simile under there as well. Welcome to my house, come freely, go safely. That's ironic as well, isn't it? And leave something of the happiness you bring. So that something that you may be leaving is going to be blood. The strength of the handshake was so much akin to what I'd noticed in the driver. There's one of those warning signs that Jonathan Harker should have really have noticed, and whose face I had not seen, that for a moment I doubted if it were not the same person to whom I was speaking. So as to make sure, I said interrogatively, "Count Dracula?" He bowed in a courtly way as he replied, "I am Dracula. I bid you welcome, Mr. Harker, to my house. Come in, the night air is chill and you must need to eat and rest." So I was getting carried away with doing the voice then as well. And again, there's a sense of, there's something mysterious going on, because in terms of the very rigid ideas about how class worked, he had carried it in before I could forestall him. So he's carrying in Jonathan Harker's luggage, and to Harker, as again Stoker is writing this, make sure you always, when you're analysing and discussing, you're mentioning the writers' names. And you know, it's very unusual that this would happen. It's what we've seen again, the connection between the driver, it's Dracula actually doing the driving, Dracula's carrying in the luggage. So there's something peculiar going on here instantly for the reader. "Nay, sir, you are my guest. It is late, and my people are not available. Let me see to your comfort myself." It's very unusual for Aris to be waiting or serving visitors. Excuse me. Okay, so continuing on. The light and warmth from the Count's courteous welcome seemed to have dissipated all my doubts and fears. Well, there's more irony. "You will, I trust, excuse me that I do not join you, but I have dined already, and I do not sup." This is the first of several references to eating and drinking, and Harker doesn't ever see Dracula, Count Dracula, ever actually eat. And again, it's another warning sign. It's something that's curious and suspicious about him, and strange. And a letter there from his boss, Mr. Hawkins. Jonathan Harker gets that. This description of Dracula is very interesting as well, and again, not necessarily very faithfully reproduced in a lot of the film versions, and very marked physiognomy. There was a fascination in Victorian times, so this is a bit of context about the idea of facial features, and also they all did this phrenology, was the bumps on the head as well, but the idea of facial features suggesting something about a person's personality and character and everything. And there's no science in it, it's a pseudoscience, but it was very popular and very widely believed in the 19th century. So this detailed description actually fits in with that, really. His face was strong, a very strong aquiline. So you got a parenthesis in there. And aquiline means eagle-like. It's a great pre-modifier there, is a great adjective. With high bridge of the thin nose and peculiarly arched nostrils, lofty domed forehead, and hair growing scantily round the temples but profusely everywhere. His eyebrows were very massive, almost meeting over the nose, and with bushy hair that seemed to curl in its own profusion. The mouth, so far as I could see it under the heavy moustache, was fixed and rather cruel-looking, with peculiarly sharp white teeth. These protruded over the lips, whose remarkable ruddiness showed astonishing vitality in a man of his years. So again, the description of him seems a bit unusual as well. And then there's also a sense of the predator there as well, with the sharp white teeth. And also these intriguing aspects about him, and these hints that there's something unusual about him, astonishing vitality in a man of his years. Also, you see about his hands, and they'd seemed rather white and fine, but seeing them now close to me, I could not but notice that they were rather coarse, broad with squat fingers. And again, unusually, there were hairs in the centre of the palm. Now that's linked to another widely held Victorian belief, which is possibly a bit too strong for YouTube. But if I put it delicately, it was an association with, let's say, a man who might frequently entertain himself. And I'm not going to say anything else beyond that. And it's not necessarily that he's doing that, but there are lots of sexual references in the novel or sexual allusions. Anyway, you can put two and two together. And just, I'm going to move on. Then the nails, long and fine and cut to a sharp point. Again, this more predatory kind of imagery here. His breath was rank, but a horrible feeling of nausea came over me, which, do what I could not conceal. So these are more of these warning signs for Jonathan Harker, aren't they? These ideas of a dangerous predator, and like a predatory animal would have really foul breath. And it's because he's drinking blood. And grim sort of smile, which showed more than he had yet done. His protuberant teeth, so they are your classic vampire teeth you're imagining. Then also reference again, predatory animals, howling of many wolves. And this next line is a fun. Listen to them, the children of the night, what music they make. Seeing, I suppose, some expression in my face stranger to him, he added, "Ah, so you dwellers in the city cannot enter into the feelings of the hunter." That just reinforces what I was saying before on the previous page. But again, links to predatory animals. Dracula has an affinity for all spooky animals, and particularly wolves, bats. I don't know whether it would extend to other creepy crawlies and rats and things. Maybe it would. I don't know. But he's definitely got an affinity with any animal that's spooky. He's got a special bond with it. He's like an evil Dr. Dolittle, but he only specialises in spooky animals. Then I am in a sea of wonders. Nice metaphor there as well. Then there's a sense here of the added mystery of the castle as well, because the beds are very old and there's a cultural reference to Hampton Court. So the kind of, you can go there now. I think it's, is it a National Trust or an English Heritage? I can't remember. But you can go there. You can go to Hampton Court, maybe not either of them, but you can go there and you can see it, and you could see the type of bed that he's talking about. But there they were worn and frayed and moth-eaten. So he's in this bedroom that people haven't been using for many, many years. Adding to the mystery, again, the warning signs, I have not yet seen a servant anywhere, which would be alarming to a Victorians, particularly one visiting an aristocrat's castle. Where are the servants? Dracula's doing everything, and he was the coachman, obviously, as well. Then we have reference to what he finds in the library, all the English books, whole shelves of them, and bound volumes and magazines and newspapers, all relating to England and English life and custom and manners. And then again, more cultural references to things that Stoker's readers would be familiar with. And Dracula here, he's planning to go to London. Through them I have come to know your great England, and to know her is to love her. So it's personification there as well. This is all part of Dracula's plan. He needs literally fresh blood. The locals in Transylvania know how to defend against him, but he wants to go somewhere new, and he wants to go to London, the capital, the heart of the British Empire. So it's the most powerful country in the world, the most richest, powerful country in the world. And what Stoker's doing is very similar to what around the same time H.G. Wells does in War of the Worlds, which is effectively here you have a question of what happens if a more powerful force invades the British Empire. In War of the Worlds, spoiler alert, it's not much of a spoiler alert, it's Martians, and they invade England first of all, and it's again overwhelms the powers of the British Empire in the same way that the British Empire went out into the world and used superior technology against the locals they would find wherever they landed and then take over that place. In this way, you have a similar thing, but this time it's not technology, it's not alien technology, it's the supernatural. And Dracula is a foreigner, and it's a foreign, unknowable power that's going to secretly invade into British society. And actually, around the time, 1890s, early part of the 20th century, there was growing paranoia about the activities of spies and anarchists and secret agents and things. So it actually also indirectly kind of taps into that as well. But there's this fear of this paranoia. Okay, we're top of the tree, we're top of the world, British Empire. But what if an unknowable or more powerful force did what we're doing to the rest of the world? So I find all that really interesting. So this is what he wants to do, and it's taken Dracula a long time to learn English because Van Helsing later says he's got like a child's brain. It takes him a long time to learn it. Vampirism is a curse after all, and he's not granted with great wisdom. It's taken him a lot of effort to actually do all this and pick up all of this as well. There's reference at the bottom. Here I am noble, I am a boyar. The common people know me and I am master. But a stranger in a strange land, he is no. Men know him not, and to know not is to care not for. He's known in Transylvania, he can move around more freely, can't he? So again, it's crossing boundaries as well. He can cross a boundary into, from this rural, almost medieval style world into modern, high-tech, powerful London. Then he wants to find out more about how to speak English, and he wants to be corrected. Then, this is ironic. You may go anywhere you wish in the castle, except where the doors are locked, where of course you will not wish to go. That's ironic. I think a locked door makes you more curious, doesn't it, really? There is reason that all things as they are, and did you see with my eyes and know with my knowledge, you would perhaps better understand. We are in Transylvania, and Transylvania is not England. Our ways are not your ways, and there shall be to you many strange things. So it's a warning, but it also, from Stoker as well, creates intrigue in the reader. And Gothic genre, classic staple of the Gothic genre, the locked room. Loads of locked rooms, secret passages, things like that. And we've got it here in spades. Then he asks about the blue flames later on. And last night, in fact, when all evil spirits are supposed to have unchecked sway, a blue flame is seen over any place where treasure has been concealed. That treasure has been hidden, he went on, in the region which you came last night. There can be but little doubt, for it was the ground fought over for centuries by the Wallachian and the Turk. He probably would have said Wallachian. Anyway, so there's a sense of history in Dracula's own past as well. Then, and he has a low opinion of the peasants here, because your peasant is at heart a coward and a fool. Again, mysteries, treasure, the blue flame, Gothic genre. I know no more than the dead where even to look for them. Harker says that. That is deeply ironic as well, isn't it? Because King 2, a member of the undead. Or maybe the most famous member of the undead. So there's mention here about cultural differences. That could be good for crossing boundaries as well, about patronymics, Harker Jonathan. So that's when, because not all cultures in the world have the same way as in generally in English, where you have your first name, surname. It's obviously different all over the world. Reference to Carfax, and I wondered if this was something interesting to note here. As the house is four-sided, agreeing with the cardinal points of the compass, is that some kind of indirect subtle connotations of the cross, of the crucifixes, maybe. Could be, couldn't it? Obviously, Dracula wouldn't like that, but I wonder if they, different points of the compass, it creates a cross, doesn't it? I wonder if it's actually very subtly Stoker foreshadowing the later activities of the Crew of Light when they set out to defeat Dracula later on. Then there's reference to how old the house is. You can't really imagine Dracula moving into a new build, can you? Nice little reference to Kodak, which is high tech at the time, and Kodak still exists as a company, but I think they've been bought out by someone else long ago. But cameras. So the use of cameras, that would be that's high tech to the readers of Stoker's time. That's another example of technology in the novel. And remember, again, it's meant to be high tech. To us, it isn't, but to the readers of the time, there's lots of technology in here which is cutting edge. There's also foreshadowing of the private lunatic asylum, which is going to figure very largely in the novel, which is Dr. Seward's asylum, which we will see later on. I am glad that it is old and big. I myself am of an old family, and to live in a new house would kill me. I think there could be a brilliant sitcom where Dracula moves into, or maybe with some other fellow monsters, they move into a new build somewhere and they get to grips with electric rockets and modern appliances. It amuses me to think anyway. Then, after all, how few days go to make up a century. This alludes to, obviously, his extended lifespan. We Transylvanian nobles love not to think that our bodies may lie amongst the common dead. Well, obviously, graves and tombs are very important to him, so he can recharge his vampiric batteries, as it were. I am no longer young, and my heart, though weary years of mourning over the dead, is not attuned to mirth. You can say that again. I love the shade and the shadow. Could you say that Dracula is always throwing shade? No, that's a terrible joke, and I won't, and I will move on very quickly. But it actually links, obviously, the Gothic theme as well, and he's more powerful at night time, and he doesn't turn to stone in sunlight. Then, on looking at certain places, little rings marked, and on examining these, I noticed that one was near London on the east side, manifestly where his new estate was situated. The other two were Exeter and Whitby on the Yorkshire coast. So these all connect to places of interest for Dracula in England that he's heading towards, and Whitby you see a lot of, and there are some references to Exeter as well. Then it's a bit suspicious he doesn't eat Dracula. And then he was sleepy. Anything else I was going to say about here? They say that people who are near death die generally at the change of the dawn or at the turn of the tide. That's good for crossing boundaries because it refers to these liminal spaces and times that exist between two other spaces and times. So here you have not twilight, the opposite of twilight, the time before the sun comes up, and the turn of the tide between high tide and low tide, or vice versa. But they're all kind of liminal spaces, aren't they? All at once we heard the crow of a cock coming up with preternatural shrillness through the clear morning air. Count Dracula jumped into his bed. Why, there is morning again. How remiss am I to let you stay up so long? You must make your conversation regarding my dear new country of England less interesting, so that I may not forget how time flies by us. And with a courtly bow, he quickly left me. Just imagine him just killing. Right, gotta get out of here. But he doesn't turn to stone. That's not in this novel. He just can't. He doesn't have access to all his powers. I don't think he doesn't enjoy being in the sunlight. It's better if he stays out of it. Then we have this incident when he's shaving as well. And Dracula, suspiciously again for warning signs, there was no reflection of him in the mirror, exclamatory sentence. And that contextually is the idea of vampires not having a soul, because the folklore belief was a mirror didn't really show you, it showed you your soul, which is why the superstition is there. When a mirror breaks, 7 years bad luck, and then you're meant to bury it, and then that helps to stop it, the bad luck, because they believed it was your soul breaking in the mirror, and it's one of those things, but it links to that. Then Dracula gets all excited because there's a bit of blood when he cuts himself shaving as well. His eyes blaze with a of demoniac fury. It's a great word. Suddenly made a grab at my throat. So the instinct of Dracula overcomes all the veneer of civility, that predatory nature. Stoker represents that shines through. Then we all know about the significance of crucifixes for vampires. Take care how you cut yourself. It is more dangerous than you think in this country. It's really because he can't really control himself. And he chucks away his mirror, making an excuse as a foul bauble of man's vanity. But it's really because he doesn't show up in it. But shouldn't his clothes, so it should just look like his clothes are hovering in the air behind Jonathan Harker? No, that would be silly. But it's fun to imagine for a second. Then he had his breakfast on his own. I have not yet seen the Count eat or drink. Again, one of those warning signs that Dracula is not a normal person. So there's a sense of danger culminating in the climax of this chapter. In no place safe in the windows of the castle walls is there an available exit. The castle is a veritable prison, and I am a prisoner. Dun, dun, dun. So Jonathan Harker, and we'll see particularly in the next chapter here, is already adopting that Gothic genre role of the damsel in distress. Normally in Gothic literature, there's normally a female young woman will be imprisoned and trapped and is left in the castle exploring and finding locked doors, and there's a mystery. Harker fulfills that role. So that's another interesting boundary being crossed by Stoker there. So anyway, that was quite a long one because it's quite a long chapter. So I'm going to wrap up there. I hope you enjoyed that. I will keep these going if they seem popular. I'd like to do the whole thing really, but it will take me some time. Anyway, enough of my problems. Who cares? Have a good time whatever you are doing and keep your reading up. Bye.